Archaeologists uncover a medieval leather boot from the 1200s, 800 years old, and it's still intact. The stitching holds, the leather flexes, and you can still see the craftsman's tooling marks. Now think about your modern leather jacket. 2 winters, maybe 3, and it's cracking at the elbows, the colour's fading, and those expensive seams are splitting. What did medieval craftsmen know that we've completely forgotten? Today, you'll discover the 3 lost secrets that made medieval leather virtually indestructible. Time, materials, and methods that modern industry abandoned for profit. Here's where everything went wrong. Medieval leather took 6 to 18 months to create. Your modern leather jacket? 24 hours from raw hide to finished product. That's not progress, that's destruction. Let me explain why time was everything. Medieval tanners used vegetable tanning with oak bark and chestnut wood. These natural tannins didn't just coat the leather's surface like modern chemicals. They slowly penetrated every single fibre over months of soaking and processing. Think of it like marinating meat, but instead of hours, they're talking about entire seasons. The oak bark contained 8 to 20% tannins. These weren't just preservatives, they were molecular architects. Each tannin molecule would find a collagen fibre in the hide and create a permanent chemical bond. But here's the crucial part. This process couldn't be rushed. The tannins needed time to migrate through the thick hide, finding every fibre, creating bonds that would last centuries. Medieval tanners worked with seasonal cycles. They'd start the process in autumn when the bark's tannin content was highest. Through winter, the slow chemical reactions continued in cool temperatures that prevented the hide from rotting while allowing the tannins to work their magic. By spring, they had leather that was fundamentally different at the molecular level, but oak bark was just the beginning. For water-resistant leather, they used fat tanning. This involved birch tar and animal oils worked into the fibres over months. The craftsmen would massage these oils deep into the leather, creating waterproof barriers that lasted centuries. Russian leather, famous across Europe, used birch tar that gave it that distinctive smell and incredible water resistance. The fat tanning process was particularly clever. They'd alternate between oil treatments and drying periods, allowing the fats to penetrate deeper with each cycle. The leather would actually improve with age as the oils migrated and settled into the perfect molecular arrangement. Now compare this to modern chrome tanning. Chromium salts are thrown at raw hide in massive rotating drums. 24 hours later, you have leather. But what you really have is a chemical shortcut that destroys the very structure that makes leather durable. Here's the science behind why rushing ruins everything. Collagen, the protein that gives leather its strength, exists in long, complex chains. Vegetable tannins gently cross-link these chains, creating a stable network that gets stronger over time. Chrome tanning attacks these chains aggressively, creating quick bonds, but also breaking down the collagen structure. Think of it like building a house. Medieval tanners laid each brick carefully, allowing the mortar to cure properly between layers. Modern tanning throws wet concrete at a frame and calls it finished. It might look solid initially, but it won't last. The seasonal aspect was crucial too. Medieval tanners understood that leather needed to go through temperature and humidity cycles during processing. These natural variations helped the tannins penetrate evenly and created internal stresses that actually strengthened the final product. Modern climate-controlled facilities eliminate these beneficial stresses. Medieval craftsmen also understood that different applications required different timing. Shoe leather might need 12 months of oak bark tanning for durability. Glove leather used alum tanning for flexibility, but still took months of careful processing. Armor leather required the longest treatment, sometimes 18 months, to achieve maximum toughness. The fat tanning for water resistance was equally time-intensive. They'd work birch tar and animal fats into the leather over multiple months, building up layers of protection. Each application had to cure completely before the next, creating a waterproof barrier that modern synthetic coatings can't match. But here's what modern manufacturers don't want you to know. This time investment created leather that improved with age. Medieval leather developed a patina, and actually became more water-resistant and durable over decades of use. Your modern leather starts degrading the moment you buy it. The irony is devastating. We have better tools, better understanding of chemistry, and better quality control than medieval craftsmen ever dreamed of. But we've chosen speed over durability, creating leather that's designed to fail so you'll buy more. Now let's talk about what medieval craftsmen actually put into their leather, because this is where the magic really happened. These weren't just random plant materials thrown together. Medieval tanners had discovered nature's own chemistry lab, and they knew exactly which ingredients created leather that could outlast empires. Oak bark was the foundation, but not just any oak bark. Medieval tanners harvested bark in spring when the sap was rising, because that's when tannin content peaked at 20%. They'd strip bark from young oak trees, grind it into specific particle sizes, and age it for months before use. The tannins in oak bark, particularly gallatannins, created incredibly stable molecular bonds with collagen fibers. But different regions developed their own secret weapons. In southern Europe, chestnut wood was the gold standard. Chestnut tannins penetrated deeper than oak and created a more flexible final product. Spanish leather makers guarded their chestnut sources like military secrets, because the wood from specific valleys produced superior results. Sumac was another crucial ingredient, especially for fine leathers. The leaves and shoots contained condensed tannins that worked differently than oak bark tannins. While oak created strong, rigid bonds, sumac tannins allowed for flexibility while maintaining strength. Medieval glove makers in Italy would pay premium prices for high-grade sumac because it produced leather soft enough for nobility's hands. Willow bark brought its own properties to the mix. It contained salicin, the same compound that gives aspirin its anti-inflammatory properties. In leather, this prevented bacterial decay and added a natural preservative quality that kept the leather stable for centuries. English tanners combined willow with oak in precise ratios that varied by season and intended use. The fat tanning materials were equally sophisticated. Russian leather used birch tar, but not just any birch tar. They'd harvest bark from birch trees that grew in specific soil conditions, then process it through controlled burning that created tar with the perfect molecular weight. This tar didn't just sit on the surface, it bonded chemically with the leather fibers, creating waterproof barriers at the molecular level. Animal fats weren't random either. Medieval tanners preferred fats from animals that grazed on specific plants. Sheep that fed on highland grasses produced fats with different fatty acid profiles than lowland sheep. These subtle differences affected how the fats penetrated and bonded with the leather fibers. Here's where it gets really interesting. Medieval tanners understood pH chemistry centuries before scientists had names for it. They used natural indicators like red cabbage juice to test their tanning solutions. Oak bark solutions naturally created the perfect, slightly acidic environment that allowed tannins to bond without damaging collagen structure. Compare this to modern chrome tanning, which uses chromium sulfate salts that create a highly alkaline environment. This alkaline chemistry breaks down collagen bonds even as it's trying to preserve the leather. It's like trying to build a house while simultaneously tearing down the foundation. The regional variations tell the real story. Cordovan leather from Spain used a specific combination of sumac and local oak that created leather so fine it was reserved for royalty. Moroccan leather makers had access to unique plant tannins from North African trees that produced leather with incredible durability and distinctive colours. But here's what's truly lost. These materials created synergistic effects. Oak tannins would create the structural framework, while chestnut tannins filled in the gaps. Sumac added flexibility, and willow provided preservation. Fat tanning with birch tar created waterproof barriers that actually strengthened over time as the oils polymerized. Modern synthetic tannins try to replicate these effects with single-molecule solutions, but they miss the complexity entirely. Natural tannins contain hundreds of different compounds that work together in ways we still don't fully understand. Medieval tanners discovered these combinations through generations of experimentation, creating formulas that modern chemistry can analyze but not improve upon. The tragedy is that most of these superior materials are still available today. Oak bark, chestnut wood, sumac, and birch tar haven't disappeared. What's disappeared is the knowledge of how to use them properly and the patience to let them work their slow magic on leather fibers. But materials and time meant nothing without the third ingredient: human expertise passed down through generations. Medieval leather production wasn't just a trade, it was a closely guarded art form, protected by guild systems that ensured quality standards we can barely imagine today. The guild system was medieval Europe's version of quality control, but far more rigorous than anything we have now. To become a master tanner, you started as an apprentice at age 12. 7 years learning to recognize good hides from bad ones. 7 years understanding how weather affected tanning solutions. 7 years watching masters make decisions that determined whether leather would last decades or fail within months. These weren't arbitrary rules. Guildmasters understood that leather quality started with hide selection, and this required expertise that took years to develop. They could tell by touch whether an animal had been properly fed, whether it had been stressed before slaughter, and whether the hide had been stored correctly. A hide from a 3-year-old bull that grazed on highland grass felt different than one from a grain-fed lowland animal. That difference would show up in the finished leather's durability. Medieval tanners developed an almost supernatural ability to read their materials. They'd run their hands over a hide and know immediately if it came from an animal that had been sick, injured, or poorly fed. These imperfections weren't always visible, but experienced hands could detect subtle changes in fiber density that would create weak spots in the finished leather. The pH monitoring was particularly sophisticated. Remember, this was centuries before modern chemistry, but guildmasters had developed natural indicator systems that rivaled modern laboratory equipment. They'd use plant extracts that change color to show acid levels in their tanning solutions. Too acidic, and the leather would be weak. Too alkaline, and the tannins wouldn't bond properly. But here's where the human element really mattered: adjustment and adaptation. Medieval masters constantly modified their processes based on seasonal changes, hide quality, and intended use. They'd adjust tanning times based on temperature and humidity. They'd change tannin concentrations based on the specific oak bark harvest. They'd modify fat tanning techniques based on the quality of available oils. Each master developed specialized tools that reflected decades of experience. Their scraping knives were shaped for specific hide types. Their folding irons were tempered for particular leather thicknesses. These weren't mass-produced tools, they were custom instruments that reflected individual expertise and regional techniques. The guild system also ensured knowledge preservation. Masters were required to train apprentices, passing down not just techniques, but the reasoning behind them. They'd explain why certain hides required longer processing, why specific weather conditions affected tanning solutions, and how to recognize problems before they ruined months of work. Quality checks happened at every stage. Apprentices learned to spot problems early when they could still be corrected. Masters would examine leather multiple times throughout the months-long process, making adjustments that prevented failures. This wasn't just about catching defects, it was about optimizing every hide's potential. Regional specialization created even higher expertise levels. Cordovan leather masters in Spain spent lifetimes perfecting techniques for horsehide. Italian glove makers developed methods specifically for thin, flexible leather. English saddle makers created processes that produced leather tough enough for warfare, but supple enough for daily use. This human expertise is what modern mass production eliminated first. When machines replaced craftsmen, we lost the ability to adapt processes to individual hides. We lost the knowledge of how to read materials and adjust techniques accordingly. We traded centuries of accumulated wisdom for speed and consistency, creating leather that's consistently mediocre instead of occasionally exceptional. Now let's get into the actual science of why medieval leather was so superior. Because when you understand what's happening at the molecular level, you'll realize just how badly modern manufacturing has failed us. It all comes down to collagen cross-linking. Collagen is the protein that gives leather its strength, existing in long, complex chains throughout the hide. Think of these chains like the steel framework of a skyscraper. How you connect them determines whether your building lasts decades or collapses in the first storm. Medieval vegetable tannins created what chemists call stable covalent bonds between collagen chains. These aren't temporary connections that break down over time. They're permanent molecular bridges that actually get stronger as the leather ages. Oak bark tannins, particularly the gallotannins, would find collagen molecules and link them together in three-dimensional networks that could withstand incredible stress. Here's the beautiful part. This process was self-reinforcing. As more tannin molecules bonded with collagen chains, they created additional binding sites for more tannins. Over months of processing, the leather developed an increasingly complex molecular structure that became nearly indestructible. Fat tanning chemistry worked on a completely different principle, but with equally impressive results. When medieval tanners worked birch tar and animal oils into leather fibers, they weren't just coating the surface. The fats penetrated between collagen chains and polymerized, creating flexible waterproof barriers at the molecular level. The chemistry here is fascinating. Birch tar contains compounds called phenolic resins that react with collagen amino acids. This reaction creates cross-linked polymer networks that repel water while maintaining flexibility. Russian leather's legendary water resistance came from these molecular-level waterproof barriers that actually improved over time as the oils continued to polymerize. Animal fats contributed their own molecular magic. The fatty acids would penetrate deep into the collagen structure and form what chemists call lipid bilayers. These are the same structures that make cell membranes waterproof in living organisms. Medieval tanners accidentally recreated nature's own waterproofing system inside their leather. Now here's where modern chrome tanning reveals its fundamental flaws. Chromium salts create an alkaline environment with a pH around 12. This high alkalinity breaks down collagen's natural structure, even as it's trying to preserve it. The chromium ions do bond with collagen, but they also cause the protein chains to swell and lose their natural alignment. The result is leather that looks good initially, but has compromised molecular structure from day one. The alkaline environment continues to slowly degrade the collagen over time, which is why your modern leather goods start falling apart after a few years. Medieval vegetable tanning worked in a slightly acidic environment with a pH around 4.5. This acidity actually strengthened collagen structure while allowing tannins to bond properly. The collagen chains remained in their natural alignment, creating leather with superior tensile strength and flexibility. Recent fiber analysis using electron microscopy has revealed the stunning difference between medieval and modern leather at the microscopic level. Medieval vegetable tanned leather shows intact collagen bundles with uniform tannin distribution throughout the fiber structure. Modern chrome tanned leather shows damaged collagen with uneven chemical distribution and visible fiber breakdown. Water resistance testing proves the superiority of medieval methods. Fat-tanned medieval leather samples can withstand water immersion for weeks without losing structural integrity. The molecular waterproof barriers remain intact even after centuries of aging. Chrome-tanned leather fails these same tests within hours as water penetrates through microscopic cracks in the damaged collagen structure. The pH science explains why medieval leather improved with age while modern leather degrades. In the slightly acidic environment created by vegetable tannins, collagen chains actually become more stable over time. Additional cross-linking occurs naturally as the leather ages, creating stronger molecular bonds. Chrome-tanned leather exists in a state of slow alkaline degradation. The high pH environment never fully neutralizes, continuing to break down collagen bonds throughout the leather's lifespan. This is why vintage chrome-tanned leather becomes brittle and cracks, while medieval leather remains supple after centuries. Microscopic analysis reveals another crucial difference: pore structure. Medieval tanning methods preserved the hide's natural pore structure while filling it with protective tannins and oils. Modern chemical tanning often collapses or damages these pores, reducing the leather's ability to breathe and flex naturally. This molecular level superiority explains why medieval leather artifacts survive in archaeological sites, while modern leather goods end up in landfills within decades. So why did we abandon these superior methods for the chemical shortcuts that give us leather that falls apart? The answer is depressingly simple: money and speed. But the real consequences go far beyond just disappointing consumers. Chrome tanning dominates 90% of global leather production today because it transforms raw hide into finished leather in 24 hours instead of 18 months. That's a massive difference in inventory costs, warehouse space, and capital investment. But this speed comes at a devastating cost to both quality and human health. Let's talk about what chromium actually does to workers and consumers. Chromium-6, a byproduct of the tanning process, is a known carcinogen. Tannery workers in developing countries show elevated rates of cancer, respiratory problems, and skin disorders. The chemical burns through protective equipment and accumulates in body tissues over time. Medieval tanners dealt with unpleasant smells and physical labor, but they weren't slowly poisoning themselves with industrial chemicals. The environmental impact is equally horrific. Chrome tanning produces toxic wastewater loaded with heavy metals that contaminate groundwater for generations. A single modern tannery can pollute water supplies for entire regions. Compare this to medieval vegetable tanning, which produced completely biodegradable waste that actually improved soil quality when properly composted. But here's where it gets really insidious: surface treatments that fool consumers into thinking they're getting quality leather. Modern manufacturers apply plastic coatings, synthetic dyes, and chemical finishes that make cheap chrome-tanned leather look expensive initially. These surface treatments create the illusion of quality while hiding the inferior base material underneath. These coatings prevent the leather from developing natural patina and actually accelerate breakdown. They crack under stress, peel off with wear, and trap moisture against the leather surface, causing rot from the inside out. Medieval leather improved with age because nothing blocked its natural processes. Modern leather is sabotaged by its own protective coatings. The planned obsolescence aspect is particularly cynical. Manufacturers discovered they could increase profits by creating leather goods that fail predictably after 2 to 3 years. They engineer weakness into products through chemical shortcuts, thin construction, and surface treatments designed to look good in the store but fail quickly in use. This isn't accidental degradation, it's calculated obsolescence. Companies run durability tests to ensure their products fail after the warranty period, but not before. They've turned leather from a buy-it-for-life material into a disposable commodity that generates repeat sales. The health consequences extend beyond tannery workers to consumers. Chromium residues in finished leather can cause contact dermatitis, allergic reactions, and skin sensitization. People develop leather allergies not because they're sensitive to leather itself, but because they're reacting to industrial chemicals that never fully wash out of chrome-tanned products. Modern dyes present their own problems. Unlike medieval plant-based dyes that bonded molecularly with leather fibers, synthetic dyes often sit on the surface where they can transfer to skin and clothing. These chemical dyes fade quickly because they're not truly integrated into the leather structure. The irony is that superior materials remain available today. Oak bark, chestnut wood, and sumac haven't disappeared from the planet. The knowledge of how to use them still exists in a few traditional tanneries scattered around the world. But the economic incentives all point toward faster, cheaper, more profitable methods that produce inferior products. Some luxury brands have started returning to vegetable tanning, but they charge premium prices that put quality leather out of reach for most consumers. This creates a two-tier market where the wealthy get durable goods while everyone else gets planned obsolescence. The industry won't voluntarily return to superior methods because chrome tanning is too profitable. The infrastructure, supply chains, and business models are all built around chemical shortcuts. Changing would require massive capital investment and patience that shareholders won't tolerate. Environmental regulations could force change, but leather lobbying groups fight any restrictions on chrome tanning. They argue that alternatives are too expensive or too slow, ignoring the fact that medieval methods produced superior results for centuries before chrome was even discovered. The tragic result is that we've created a world where our ancestors' everyday leather goods outlast our modern luxury items by centuries, all in the name of efficiency and profit. Here's what you need to remember. Medieval leather lasted centuries because time and natural materials created permanent chemical bonds that actually strengthened over time. Modern shortcuts sacrifice this durability for speed and profit, giving you leather that's designed to fail. If you want leather goods that last decades instead of seasons, look for vegetable tanned leather. Yes, it costs more upfront, but it's actually cheaper when you calculate cost per year of use. Next week, I'll show you exactly how to identify quality leather in modern markets and avoid the marketing tricks that fool most consumers.